أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرفهم أجمعين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من ليلتنا هذه إلى قيام يوم الدين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم إن لقتل الحسين حرارة في قلوب المؤمنين لن تبرد أبدا. صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you. Dear brothers and sisters, mu'mineen wa mu'minat, it is an honor and a privilege once again to participate in this gathering, in this morning ceremony, in this commemoration of the events of Karbala, of the day of Ashura, this day of remembrance, this day of seeking light and blessing and lessons for our lives, inshallah. The events of Karbala are commemorated around the world by people belonging to various communities. I belong to India, and one of the special features of India is that there are some non-Muslim communities as well that commemorate the events of Ashura. And of course, a large number of Muslims, both Shia and Sunni, they commemorate Karbala and Ashura in their own different ways and methods. However, the gatherings of the Shia are special, and therefore it is an added honor to be a part of a Shia gathering that seeks to commemorate the events of Karbala. And that may be perhaps on account of the larger numbers that gather in Shia commemorations. Maybe perhaps, although it could be argued that a city where the Shia gathering has the largest numbers may not really be a sign of success. Perhaps success would be if the Shia are able to spread this message in a way that non-Shia gatherings are larger in number than Shia gatherings, and inshallah, such a day will come, inshallah. The uniqueness and added importance of Shia gatherings related to Karbala therefore lies not in their larger numbers, larger number of participants or larger number of gatherings, but it is to be sought instead in the quality of these gatherings. It is in the Shia gatherings that the commemoration of Karbala is conducted at a higher plane, with better understanding, with deeper knowledge and ma'rifah of Imam Hussein, of his followers, of the events of Karbala. And with far greater love and passion and harara than the other gatherings are. And this is where the uniqueness and the added importance and value of Shia commemorations lie. And it is a gift, it is a blessing that has been bestowed upon us. The fact that we, the Shia communities all over the world, this in many cases is our most important identity marker. The fact that we hold these gatherings, and if others hold these gatherings as well, we welcome that. That's how it should be. This is the natural order of things. These gatherings should not be limited to the Shia alone. But it is a matter of honor that our gatherings are richer in content, be it knowledge, intellectualization, or passion and commitment. In every sense, our gatherings are deeper, and this is also the natural order of things. This is how it should be. When we speak of passion and these gatherings, emotion, grief, sorrow, commitment, conviction, and the gatherings of Karbala, we need to keep in mind that this passion is directly proportionate to the level of connection that we have with our Imam. The deeper and stronger this connection is, the more passionate our gatherings will be, the more passionate our own participation in these morning ceremonies and gatherings will be. I had narrated and quoted something from Ayatollah Behjat last night, where he spoke about the unique importance of Aza and these morning ceremonies, crying for Hussein and his followers in particular, and how these few seconds, even if they are just a few seconds or a few minutes of grief and crying, this is something that cannot be play acted. This is that moment, these few seconds, these few minutes, where we genuinely establish a connection with Imam Hussein. And when we are speaking of establishing a connection with Imam Hussein and the quality of this connection, of course, we all seek a superior and an ever improving connection with Imam Hussein. We understand and we recognize that our connection and its quality depends to a large degree on what we know of Imam Hussein, what we know about him, what we know about his pain and his suffering, what we know about his trials and tribulations, what we know about his Gnostic ecstasy and his spiritual joys, what we know about his connection with Allah Azza wa Jal Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. The more we know, the more ma'rifat we have about these things, the better will our connection with Imam Hussein be naturally. And therefore, one of the most important aspects of gatherings such as this one is to increase our ma'rifat, so that as a consequence of improved ma'rifat and recognition and understanding and knowledge of the various facets of our Imam and his personality, our level of emotional engagement, passion and grief can increase in proportion. The path to feeling more sorrowful about Imam Hussein, this path goes through the valleys of ma'rifat of Imam Hussein. And therefore, dear brothers and sisters, Allow me to spend a few minutes speaking about one of the most important aspects of Karbala. Dear brothers and sisters, Imam Hussein was fundamentally a man with a mission. Imam Hussein alayhi salatu was salam, please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Was a man on a mission. And the more we can understand this aspect of his existence and his personality, the easier it will be for us to establish a meaningful and rich connection with him. To explain this point, that Imam Hussein was fundamentally a man with a mission, on a mission, let us go back to Medina. Let us go back to Medina. The Imam is about to leave Medina. 1400 years ago, Bay'ah has been demanded of him, and we've gone over this discussion earlier, that he has analyzed the situation and he has come to this conclusion that he must reject this demand for the pledge of allegiance, and he must reject it openly, and he must leave Medina in broad daylight. He doesn't leave suddenly. He takes a few days to prepare to say goodbye and then leave. During this time, a number of people come to meet him. Some try to dissuade him. Some try to warn him of the dangers of the path that he is taking. Some make requests to be included in his journey and made a part of his caravan. People come with different points of view and with different purposes. And some of these meetings and these conversations have been recorded in history. One of these conversations and these meetings is the one between Imam Hussein and his half-brother, an important and pious personality by the name of Muhammad bin Hanafiya. Muhammad bin Hanafiya is also the son of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wassalam, but the mothers are different. An important personality, a pious personality, a knowledgeable personality, somebody who, despite being on the path of Haqq, for certain reasons is not able to go with Imam Hussein. It is believed he was very unwell at that time. And he comes to Imam Hussein and they have this conversation. He doesn't try to dissuade him. He knows, he understands this is the Imam of the time. He's made a decision. There's no question of dissuading him. But he offers a suggestion. He suggests to him, "Oh brother, please head out to Makkah. Makkah is the right place for you. If you find that you can stay in Makkah, the situation is such that it allows you to stay in Makkah, that's fine. If not, I would suggest Yaman as the second option." And he goes on to speak about the people of Yaman and the fact that they have a special connection with the Ahl Bayt, and that they are very, very welcoming of guests and visitors. And by the way, these are qualities that continue to be found in the Yemeni people even today. And their struggle for independence and for self-respect, which has been more or less blacked out from the news, continues with renewed vigor even today. And we are hopeful that they will soon meet with success. And if you're not able to stay in Yemen, then there are a certain set of mountains. Please head out towards those mountains. So he offers some suggestions to the Imam to be able to move forward in his movement. The Imam thanks him for his suggestions and tells him that even if I am not able to find a single spot on the face of the earth where the people are willing to have me, I will still not do Bay'ah of Yazid. He expresses this conviction very openly. The two brothers hug each other and cry with love and with grief at the impending separation. And then Imam Hussein writes a few lines and gives them to Muhammad bin Hanafiya. Very few lines which have been recorded in history. Now I'm just going to focus on one sentence or part of one sentence from these few lines to elaborate on that statement that I had made a few minutes ago, which is that Imam Hussein was fundamentally a man with a mission. And the more we can understand this and the better that we can appreciate this, the better will be the nature of our relationship and our connection and our emotions and our grief and sorrow when it comes to Imam Hussein. In those few lines, Imam Hussein mentions or makes a very, very important statement. He explains the purpose of this movement that he is about to initiate. He is about to leave Medina, openly rejecting the rule of Yazid. And he says that I am doing this for a certain purpose. The words that are found in that letter or that note are thus. He says, Inni lam akhruj asharan wala batara. I'm not leaving Medina. I'm not demonstrating and exhibiting my protest when it comes to this new ruler because I have a lust for worldly power. Inni lam akhruj asharan wala batara wala mufsidan wala zalima. And the purpose of my movement and my rebellion against this rule and ruler is not to cause disorder and disarray. It is not to oppress anyone. This is a very fairly common thing. It has always been the case and still is. There are people who lead rebellions against ruling powers, revolutions against ruling powers. A large number of them, perhaps most of them. Their slogans may be very, very pious and very clean and beautiful, but their goals and purposes are frequently very worldly and lowly. Imam Hussein is making it very clear, no, I am not of that type and character. I have but one purpose. I am about to initiate this Husseini movement, and we are all even today a part of this movement, for simply and only one purpose. And he goes on to say, Innama kharajtu li talabil islah fi ummati jatti. The only reason that I am initiating and starting this movement of defiance and resistance is because I seek islah in my grandfather's community and ummat. I seek islah. That is the only reason why I am doing this. Yes, dear brothers and sisters, islah. Islah. Imam Hussein himself has declared openly, cleanly, clearly why he has initiated this movement. Seeking islah. Dear brothers and sisters, islah is an Arabic word. It is also used in several other languages that are associated with Muslim culture. Islah is frequently translated into words like reform, correction, perhaps even revival. All these words are more or less appropriate, and they give us a sense of what Islah is. Reform, correction. As Muslims, we understand that in the universe, there is a natural order of things. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a place. And whenever we see that anything in this world, in this universe, is not performing its purpose, its designated and desired purpose, or is out of place, we say that there is a defect here, there is a deviation here, and we seek islah, we seek reform. And well, let me give you a very simple example from our own bodies. Our human bodies each human body is a complex organism, many systems, very complicated, and we are still discovering several aspects of it. But this body has, at various times, it suffers from various kinds of defects and deviations. Sometimes something extraneous appears in this body, maybe some kind of a tumor, benign or even worse. Islah in that case is to remove this extraneous tissue from our body, excise it, remove it. That's Islah. In some cases, it could be a shortage of something. There are people who lack certain or have a shortage of certain minerals, hormones, you name it. Islah in this case is to supplement that which is less. Sometimes things may move from their place. A shoulder gets dislocated. Now here we need to simply move it back into its right position. That is Islah in this case. As human beings, as people who are using our God-given intellect, we appreciate and we understand that this universe is orderly. Everything, every object, every phenomenon, and even beyond, has a certain natural role to play and a certain proper position in the order of things. And when that position is disturbed, when that role is not played, we know that there is need for Islah. And here it is, and here we see Imam Hussain saying, "Innama kharajtu li talabil islah." I seek reform. Reform of what? Li talabil islah. Fi ummati jaddi. The defect that has appeared is not in religion per se. It is in the ummat that this problem has occurred. The religion is perfect. Akmaltu lakum dinakum. Deen is kamil. But ummate jaddi has begun to suffer from some deviations. Now what could these deviations be? What could these deviations be? To understand a deviation, to understand a defect, we need to first understand what the natural order of things is. What is the correct, healthy state of being? It is only after we understand that for any object, for anything, it is only after we understand that we can hope to understand what the defect or deviation is. Fairly commonsensical. So what is the natural order of things, the healthy and correct state of being for Ummati Rasulullah? What is it? The more we can understand this, the easier it will be to understand what drove Imam Hussain to initiate this Hussaini movement. Time is short, and Alhamdulillah, the Holy Quran has provided a short and succinct answer to this question. The question, dear brothers and sisters, is what is the healthy state of being and the natural order of things when it comes to the Ummah? And the answer is found in the Holy Quran. We can approach the Holy Quran in different ways when we seek answers. For example, one way is to study the Holy Quran in its entirety. Pose a question to the Quran. What is the natural order of things? What is the healthy state of being when it comes to the Ummah? We can study the entire Quran if we have the required expertise, and then infer the answer from this. This is one way of attaining answers from the Quran. But of course, it's fairly obvious that this is a way that is open only to those who acquire the required skills and knowledge to be able to pursue this. Another way, which is open to a much larger number of people, including all of us here, is to seek ayat that deal directly with a certain question or topic. And alhamdulillah, in this case, we have such an ayat. In ayat number 110 of Surah Al Imran, we have the Almighty addressing us in this manner. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كنتم خير أمة. You are the best ummat. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. You are the best ummat that has been created for the benefit of all of humanity and mankind. Mufassirin, in the light of ahadith and other discussions, have clarified that this ayat does not mean to say that we are already of this nature. No, this is what we are meant to be. And that is why this translation is further refined in many cases in this fashion. You are meant to be the best ummat that has been created for the benefit of all of humanity. تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ لِلْمُنْكَرِ. You enjoin good, you call people towards goodness. وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. And you forbid that which is evil and wrong. Ya Ali. It seems it was a very powerful nara. Salli ala Muhammad.
Please come forward as much as possible. I think so. Please stand up and come forward, please, as much as possible. Alhamdulillah.
Please recite a salawat while you are doing so. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajum. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. This is the natural order of things. We have been created as a community, as a transnational community, as a multilingual, multiracial community, as a community which is joined fundamentally by faith and iman. We may have different colors of our skin, may be different languages, cultures, certain aspects of our culture may be very varied and different, but we are joined together by this identity. Khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. A community that benefits all of humanity, that raises up all of humanity from all sorts of darkness and ignorance and filth, and raises it up higher, benefits humanity, all of humanity. And this is the natural place and the natural order of things. Now it is a different matter that we need to examine how far we have achieved this identity which has been defined for us. And it is an important discussion. But that is a different topic. When we go back, because we are seeking to understand Imam Hussein, improve our ma'rifah so that we can establish a better connection, including a better emotional connection with him. إِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي أُمَّتِ جَدِّي. The natural order of things is that the ummat has to be the best ummat benefiting all of mankind. And this is how the ummat was. When the Islamic movement began in Makkah in its early stages, and from Medina in its fuller form during the lifetime of our Holy Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala. It was an explosion of light. It was a gust of fresh, fragrant air that burst forth from Medina, spreading east and west, north and south. And nobody could stand in front of it, could encounter it, and not be attracted and subsumed into it. Much is said about how Muslims took out their swords and they attacked left and right. We're not going to get into detailed historical discussion here, but one thing is very clear, that if sword warfare played a role in the spread of Islam, it was much smaller than the role played by the enormous attractiveness of Islam. The enormous attractiveness of Islam. Which is why, in a very short period of time, you had a very large number of people being drawn towards Islam and accepting Islam and adopting Islam. And even those who did not, they were affected and influenced by Islam and begin to make changes and reforms in their own societies and their own systems in response to Islam. And that is a very interesting topic in itself. This is how it was, particularly during the time of the Holy Messenger. But when the Holy Messenger passed away, when he passed away, things started to go off track very rapidly, very rapidly. Within a few years, we see that the most important criterion for acquiring positions of power and authority in Muslim society is that you should be a part of Bani Umayyah. It took just a few years, a handful of years. Access to material resources was determined not on the basis of need or ability, but on the basis of whether you are Arab or Ajam. And even among Arab, which Ashira and which tribe do you belong to? This is not what it was meant to be. And this decline continued steadily for 50 years till we come to this point where a person who is known for being a drunkard, a person who is known, famous, infamous for being a sinner, he now acquires a position of authority whose title is Khalifatul Rasul. We say Khalifa. Khalifa means successor. When we say successor, we always have to ask the question, successor to whom? The complete title is Khalifatul Nabi, Khalifatul Rasul. Yazid is now claiming that I am the rightful heir and successor to the Holy Prophet. He is doing this openly. News of this spreads to all the Islamic lands from east to the west, and it doesn't make a difference to anybody. It doesn't make a difference to anybody. At most, some people express some disappointment and then they say, oh, what can we do? These are these big affairs, politics, it's all very difficult. We don't have anything to do with it. What can we do? Those are the good people that I'm talking about here at that time. What a fall. What an enormous and terrifying decline for khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. It takes only 50 years for this to happen. It takes only 50 years. And now this odious usurper, Yazid, shamelessly claiming to be the successor of the Prophet, is now demanding from the real successor of the Prophet that you need to openly declare your allegiance to me and your acceptance of my usurpation. This is the extent of deviation and defect that Imam Hussein was encountering at that time. Innama kharajtu li talabil islah fi ummati jaddi. That's the only reason why I am initiating this movement of reform, this movement of defiance and resistance. And he sets out from Medina towards Makkah. Dear brothers and sisters, his selection of Makkah is meaningful as well. There are at least two important aspects as to why he selected Makkah. There is one aspect which has to do with Makkah being a sanctuary. In Islamic culture, it is seen as a sanctuary. It is seen as a place where violence and conflict should be avoided because of its hurmah, because of its sanctity and dignity. That's one aspect. But perhaps the more important aspect that leads Imam Hussain alayhi salam to choose Makkah as his destination is that Makkah is where all of the Islamic world gathers and comes together. Be it for Umrah or for, even at a larger scale, for the Hajj, for the annual Hajj. It is early in Sha'ban that Imam Hussain reaches Makkah. Sha'ban is also a time for Umrah, Ramadan even more than that. But very soon after that in Shawwal and even more so in Zilqa'dah, the caravans begin to arrive. Of course, there are always caravans coming and going from Makkah. So the selection of Makkah itself is a very, very well thought out and well considered selection. Imam Hussain has to initiate a movement, and a movement requires that word should spread. And the selection of Makkah is very important for word to spread. And that's what Imam Hussain does. He goes there and word spreads. Word spreads all over the Islamic world. People come to Makkah and they are told that Imam Hussain is here. They go to meet him and he tells them why he is here. He tells them that Yazid demanded bay'ah from me. I have rejected it and I have come here openly declaring my rejection. This has an electrifying effect on the Muslim world. Word spreads everywhere. Some people are disappointed. Some people are scared. Some people are confused. But a significant number of people are inspired when they learn that Imam Hussain has taken this bold and meaningful step. They are inspired. Imam Hussain in this fashion has presented us, in his Hussaini movement, he has presented us a model of being, not just a model of action, a model of being itself. It is difficult for someone like me to articulate it, but let me try nonetheless. Perhaps I will get part of it right. Imam Hussain has taught us through this action, through this movement that he initiates, that the Ahl Bayt's understanding of Islam and their way of living and being has certain important features. One of them is that there is an all-consuming passion to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to serve Him on this earth, to serve Him while living among other human beings, while trying to uplift humanity, while trying to confront problems and evil. That's one aspect. And that's why we see him taking this bold step. The second aspect that we can see in this model of being is that Imam Hussain demonstrates that this all-consuming passion to serve Allah requires different kinds of actions depending on the situation. Let's not forget, Imam Hussain did not become Imam on the night that bay'ah was demanded from him in Medina. He was already Imam 10 years prior to that. But those previous 10 years, the earlier 10 years, the first 10 years of his imamat required him to avoid open confrontation. It was not some secret order from Allah. No, the situation demanded service of Allah and His mission and of Islam required that open confrontation be avoided. But when Yazid replaces his father, Yazid with all the qualities that we know him for. And the Islamic world is first stunned, but then just simply accepts it. The situation has changed. And when the situation changes, it requires a change of action, a changed response, and which is why we have open rejection beginning from Medina. That's another aspect perhaps of this model. And the third aspect is that once it becomes clear that a new approach is required to serve Allah, Imam Hussein demonstrates the moral courage, the bravery to invest everything into it, to put everything on the line for it, if that's what's required, including his little children, as we all know. This way of being, this Husseini, is Husseiniat, this Husseinism. I'm struggling for the right name because I don't think, well, in English at least, I don't think we have yet found or hit upon the right name. Let me say Husseinism for now. This Husseini culture, this Husseini way of being, it has inspired Muslim reform movements and reformers, be they Shia or Sunni, for the last 1400 years. I can say this with confidence, that if we study the history of Muslim society for the last 1400 years, from China all the way to Europe and beyond, if we find any notable Muslim movement or Muslim reformer, somebody who has been more or less on the right path, Shia or Sunni, in his reform efforts, has been sincere in his efforts, we will find him modeling himself on Karbala. We will find him modeling himself on Hussein ibn Ali. Many of them openly declaring that they are doing so. And it's not necessary for you to be Shia or even to be Muslim to be able to do this. We have non-Muslims who have claimed that Hussein is their model, and that's what's leading them and driving them to improve and uplift humanity in different ways. So this way of being has an electrifying effect. And inshallah, in the coming nights, we will try to understand this better so that hopefully it will provide some direction, further direction for us to improve the quality of our own lives and rise up from this everyday, mundane rigmarole to a higher order of existence, inshallah. Just as it has had an electrifying effect on us and on others, this Husseini movement and model had an electrifying effect on the people of Kufa at that time. Kufa is a very special place, dear brothers and sisters. Kufa in southern Iraq at that time was known as a Shia base. Of course, the word Shia was not that common. They used to say Alawi. An Alawi stronghold. An Alawi stronghold. And that had a lot to do with the fact that during the brief period of his Khilafah, Imam Ali alayhi salatu wassalam, please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Imam Ali had based his rule in Kufa. Many people had migrated to Kufa, particularly certain Yemeni tribes, because Yemen has always had this special link with Imam Ali. Yemeni tribes in particular and others had migrated to Kufa, and Kufa had expanded enormously under Imam Ali's rule. And in the wars between Imam Ali and Yazid's father, on one side, Imam Ali's army was often referred to as the Iraqi army. Iraq and Kufa in particular were the Alawi base of that time. And alhamdulillah, they are even today. The people of Kufa, when they hear that Hussein ibn Ali has taken this bold step, they are electrified. They are inspired. And they begin to send emissary after emissary, letter after letter, pledging their allegiance to Imam Hussein, offering to help him, and above all, inviting him to Kufa to lead a resistance and revolution against the usurping evil power of that time. They said, we don't want to accept Yazid. We are not ready to accept Yazid, but we don't have a leader. We don't have a leader. You are the only person who can lead us. We are willing to sacrifice everything if you lead us. Hundreds, some have said thousands of letters or thousands of signatories on tens or hundreds of letters arrive in Makkah. Dear brothers and sisters, it's important to keep the sequence in mind. Sometimes I have come across people who are under the impression that Imam Hussein initiated his movement because the Kufans invited him to do it. But this is getting the sequence wrong. The Kufans invited him because he had initiated his movement. When he moved out of Medina and moved to Makkah, the Kufans had no idea about any of this. It is when they saw his dedication, conviction, bravery that they were inspired and then invited him to Kufa. It's important to keep this distinction in mind. There are letters, there are emissaries. Imam Hussein alayhi salam decides to make the next move. And what is the next move? Imam Hussein decides to send an emissary, a representative to Kufa to check what's happening there, to validate the claims of the Kufans. Okay? And he writes a letter, Inni ba'ithun ilaykum, it's addressed to the Kufans. Inni ba'ithun ilaykum akhi wabnu ammi wa thiqati min ahli bayti. O Kufans, I am sending with this letter my brother, my cousin, my paternal cousin, and a member of my Ahl Bayt who I trust completely. Muslim bin Aqil. Muslim bin Aqil. Muslim bin Aqil is his paternal cousin, Imam Hussein's paternal cousin, an important member of the Bani Hashim, someone who has been with this family, with the Ahl Bayt right from the start. In Siffin, we see him in Imam Ali's army playing an important role. And it's interesting when we see the narrations related to this letter and sending Janabi Muslim, Hazrat Muslim to Kufa, it appears that the sequence of events was that Imam Hussein first wrote the letter and then informed Muslim about it. There was so much love, understanding and conviction that Muslim will follow whatever I have decided, that he did not feel it necessary to first ask Muslim and then write the letter. He hands the letter to Hazrat Muslim, and Hazrat Muslim goes on to Kufa. The events of Kufa, tumultuous events. He arrives there, arrives to a rapturous welcome. Group after group, personality after personality. He spends days simply being taken from one house to the other, one public meeting to another in Kufa, which is ruled by Yazid. But the people are so bold and open in their resistance to Yazid at that time, even though the governor is still the governor of Yazid, that this governor doesn't have the courage to confront them. He's simply forced to quietly watch what is happening in Kufa. Today there is a meeting in this house, tomorrow in that public square, and people are declaring their allegiance to Hussein, declaring their allegiance to Muslim. When Janabi Muslim and Hazrat Muslim sees this, he sends off a letter to Imam Hussein, informing him that the Kufans are just as they claim to be. They have sent all those letters to us in Makkah. I am here, I have met them, hundreds of them, thousands of them, and they are ready to honor their word. Please come to Kufa. Please come to Kufa. He sends this letter. He sends this letter, and we see that after he sends this letter, the situation in Kufa begins to change. Yazid changes the governor of Kufa. He sends Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad as the new governor. He sends Ubaidullah as the new governor. Ubaidullah, apart from being an extremely devious and clever and evil person, he is also the son of the previous governor of Kufa during the time of Muawiyah, Ziyad ibn Abi. And the people of Kufa have suffered immensely at the hands of Ziyad. And they still quake at the memory of his oppression and injustices. And now his son has been sent as governor, as new governor. Ubaidullah moves quickly, and by spreading some false rumors among the Kufans, is able to cause a separation between the Kufans and between Hazrat Muslim. It happens very rapidly. It happens in as short as a couple of days. Those of you who have watched that serial Mukhtar Nama, which has been translated into and dubbed into several languages, will recall these events. And by the way, this time of the year is a good time to watch this serial again. It has a greater impact when we watch it during these months. And it is quite historically reliable. A lot of effort has gone into making it historically reliable. Ubaidullah causes a separation. And we see that Hazrat Muslim, who was being carried on the shoulders of the Kufans from one public meeting to another, is suddenly left wandering the streets of Kufa all by himself. There is nobody with him. He has nowhere to go. He is wandering aimlessly in those narrow lanes of Kufa. The air is heavy with fear and treachery. But Hazrat Muslim doesn't seem to notice. He has nowhere to go. His mind is fixated on one thing alone. How shall I inform my brother and my Imam that the Kufans have betrayed you? How do I get word to Hussein? That's the only thing that's occupying his mind. Wandering around Kufa, people are scurrying about here and there. Someone is trying to hide. Someone is trying to, make amends and go to the palace and, make apologies and offer his apology. Whatever. It's a mess. The city is in a total mess. He sits down at a doorstep, not knowing what to do, wondering what to do. How shall he get word across to Hussein? He sits down at a doorstep, and while he's sitting there, an old lady from inside the house calls out to him and says, "Oh stranger, why are you sitting here? Don't you know what's happening in this city? What do you want?" He says, "I want some water. I'm very thirsty." She offers him some water. Then she says, "Oh stranger, go away to your home, go away to your family." Hazrat Muslim says, "I have no family here. I have no home in Kufa." She says, "What is your name?" He says, "Muslim." "What Muslim?" "Muslim bin Aqil bin Abi Talib." She opens the door and she calls him in. "Muslim, don't you know they're looking for you? Come inside. I will hide you in my house." This lady, her name is To'a. Her name is To'a. It's a name that will be repeated tonight in gatherings such as these all over the world. There were thousands of ladies in Kufa at that time. How many of their names do we remember or do we know? Nothing. But To'a's name has been recorded and it is repeated. And every time it is taken and repeated, our hearts pray for her. Every time we remember this lady for this simple act of taking in a lover of the Ahl Bayt, a follower of the Ahl Bayt, and helping him, assisting him at that time, has ensured that her stations in the afterlife, in the higher realms, are constantly elevated. For this small step, offered water and said, "Come inside." Hazrat Muslim spends the night there. The next morning, we see that the army arrives. He has been betrayed. a posse of soldiers arrive and they engage in warfare with Hazrat Muslim. Hazrat Muslim bravely confronts them, fights them all by himself, tens or perhaps even more of these soldiers, but is finally wounded, captured, and dragged to the palace. And there he is, in the palace, in the castle, with his hands tied, with his teeth broken, with blood streaming down his face, standing before Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. And the Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad is looking at him menacingly, gloating over the fact that he's managed to capture him. At that point, somebody pushes Hazrat Muslim forward and says salam to the commander, says salam to the Amir. Don't you have any manners? And Hazrat Muslim replies, this usurper is not my Amir. My Amir is only and only Hussein. After some time, somebody notices him weeping and then taunts him, contemptuously asks him, after all this fighting and bravado, now that you are facing death, you are weeping like a child? Hazrat Muslim says, no, I'm not weeping for myself. I'm weeping for Hussein. How do I get word across to him that the Kufans have betrayed him? Ubaidullah says, take him up to the roof and execute him. Hazrat Muslim is dragged up to the roof of the castle. He is beheaded on the castle's roof. His head is sent to Yazid. His body is thrown down from the roof, dragged through the streets of Kufa, and then strung up in the market of Kufa for a number of days. O Muslim, you have achieved martyrdom. You were loyal to your master and your Imam, and you have soared up towards the heavens. When word of his martyrdom reaches Imam Hussain and he's on his way to Kufa, he is deeply affected. It is narrated that he gathered the remaining children of Hazrat Muslim. They say there was a small little girl and daughter there. He sat her down beside himself, and showered fatherly affection on this little girl, and ensured her that he will take care of her, that he will avenge her father. O Imam Hussain, I ask you on behalf of everyone who is here, Imam Hussain, you were able to do this for Muslim and for his child, but the same will happen to you in a few days. What will happen at that time? You will be beheaded as well. Your body will be trampled by horses. And all this will happen in front of the ladies and children of your house. At least Muslim's family did not have to see any of these events. This will happen in front of them. Will there be anybody there at that time who will console your little daughter? Will there be anybody who will tell her, everything will be all right, I will avenge your father? Will there be anybody there when those brutes enter the tents, those brutes who think nothing about slapping terrified children and yanking earrings from their earlobes? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-ali al-azim. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون